You're listening to the Geekscape Network.
Time to fire up the VCR. This one's my favorite. That was gold.
Welcome to Analog Jones in the Temple of Film. I'm Steve.
And I'm Matt.
And this is a VHS podcast that looks at the box art trailer and behind the scenes. And we're on to our third Turtles movie. Matt, introduce the very simple film title.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
16th century Japan. Brave men ride into battle, fighting an evil emperor. With their only hope, a golden scepter that can open the gates of time itself. Now, in their darkest hour, come four brave fighters from another time, another place, another species.
You were expecting maybe the Addams Family?
They're back, and they're back in time.
Hey, kids, check it out! We're in Shogun!
Once before, demons defeated my ancestors. Now they've come back for me.
Talk about your quantum leap!
My cannons can destroy these monsters, my lord.
Uh-oh, this doesn't bode well. I love this stuff!
How are we gonna get home?
Oh, Silver! Somebody dial 911.
I have a feeling we're gonna be here for a very long time.
Another Silver!
This is the worst rescue I've ever had.
I think I swallowed a frog. I hope it wasn't an ancestor.
New Line Cinema presents
A Legorama. Sweet!
the four greatest turtles
Hey, all right. It's not just a job, it's an adventure.
ever to go down in history.
It's just your ordinary time travel equal mass displacement kind of thing. Kids.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
Help, I'm a turtle and I can't get up.
So on the cover, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Roman numeral 3. On the side, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the number 3.
That's so funny.
And if you actually Google Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, sometimes you don't get what you want. You need to actually Google Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 111 or I.
Yeah, the Roman numerals. When I Googled it the other day, when we were about, after I watched this, knowing we were about to talk about it, it gave me more information about the planned Michael Bay third one.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what I got.
And I was like, okay, so people care more about this movie that didn't happen versus the one that actually does exist. And I would assume there's probably more interest in this unmade third one because of all the links and stuff that come up. So I'm assuming that's what's searched more, because in doing your research and trying to find information about this third movie, there's just not that much out there. And I just think it comes down to the fact that people just don't care.
Exactly. This is one of those films that should have been big, should have been popular, but because it was so disappointing, so disliked, and even so hated by some, like at the 20-year anniversary, when they stuck all three of these, you get a little bit of stuff on the first two films. The third one, no one cares about.
Yeah, and I even looked at the IMDb ratings of the movies, and like for comparison, 2, which is kind of a cult classic or whatever, somewhat of a cult classic, has a 6.1 user rating on IMDb. And by the time we get to 3, it drops all the way down to 4.1, which is a huge jump. A part 2 to a part 3, a single entry in a series. Usually fans will keep that number up, but even the fans didn't care about this one.
I mean, Rotten Tomatoes I'm looking at right now has a 23%. We all know that both Matt and I have problems with Rotten Tomatoes, but 23% is low.
Right. It's just nobody really sticking up for this one. And spoiler alert, we're not really going to stick up for it much either. It's an unfortunate thing. The series running out of steam, a probably rushed making of the movie, coupled just, with lack of interest, series dwindling, didn't need to go this route. we talked about in the last episode kind of this planned, mapped out 2 and 3 that we should have gotten with Krang and Dimension X and the dinosaurs and the aliens, and we never got that. And so the decision to go to just feudal Japan is weird, and there's so much history, being told at like the beginning of this movie. This movie almost kind of feels like a homework.
Yeah. I mean, I assume all this really goes down to the video game came out at the same time, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in Time. And they're like, oh, let's do that. And they probably looked through the comic books to find his story. I know there were stories where Michelangelo was in Japan or something like that. He went off on his own adventures. But I don't know if it was feudal Japan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Adventures in Japan. But I can't tell you why. This has nothing to really do with the video game. This really has nothing to do with the cartoon. It has nothing to do with anything.
But do you think that Turtles Through Time is kind of maybe what pushed this in this direction, though?
Possibly. I mean, that's the only link I got.
Mm-hmm.
I just read somewhere from some person, they're like, well, Michelangelo had adventures in Japan when he was doing, like, I guess they try to break him up like the Beatles. I don't get that. I don't even know if the comic book really exists. I just read that somewhere. I think somewhere on Reddit, someone said it. Maybe I could find some on it. But here's the thing. Usually when I do homework on these things, I'm interested. I have no interest in finding out. I just watched the film. I was like, oh, all right. They're in Japan. I just don't care.
The item, the lantern, is cool. It makes like a good toy. You know what I mean? Like it makes her a cool toy, and the idea that through this thing you could do the time travel. I think for a kid that works. But once you make it sort of so historical and you don't have like any sort of monster villains or anything like that, it makes it boring. And it makes it feel very direct-to-video-y.
Yeah, this has the look and feel of direct-to-video. And even the director basically just did television before this and television after.
It feels that way. And and watching it as a series, 1 through 3, it feels like kind of work getting through this one. But there is enough, I guess, connective tissue if you're invested in the first 2 that kind of get you through it. But it does feel like homework. Adding the feudal Japan element really makes it feel too historical and it's a period piece. Kids don't want to watch a period piece.
So you watch this as a homework assignment. I did research on this like a homework assignment. Either way, we both kind of lose a little bit.
Yeah, either way, this is not sort of, we were talking about the first 2 movies, and, I was bringing up, like, some people like the second one more, some people like the first one more. You're never really going to find anybody who's going to defend this one, or really loves part 3.
Yeah, even the people who defend the Star Wars prequels back off this one. They're like, whoa, nope, I'm out on this one.
Yeah, I just can't imagine this one having like a deep, deep fan base.
I think the only reason they have like a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes is because you probably have to give like 1 star, which is about, 20%. I don't know if you can give it a 0. I don't know. I haven't rated something on Rotten Tomatoes in years.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The movie isn't necessarily the worst, in my opinion, as we get to start talking about it here. It's not the worst. It's just a massive letdown coming off of the other ones. It's still not a good movie. I'm not necessarily defending it because it does feel pretty lazy and slapped together. It's still made a year after the first one, even though it didn't end up coming out until 2 years after the last one. It's fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's there. It's fine. It could have been a lot worse, I feel like. I've turned off the 2007 TMNT several times because it wasn't my thing. I sat and watched this whole one. I didn't love it, but, it's just kind of one of those that just sits in the middle, not really doing anything.
I rank these relative to the entire franchise, and it's not the worst in the franchise, but it's still really bad in my mind.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I'm just super disappointed, and I feel like this is, out of all the stuff, I look at coming out of their Shell tour, I look at the next Mutation, those are ones where I'm like, ugh. Those are bad. This one is the ultimate, like, I shake my head, a disappointed parent. You had all this. You spent $21 million on this?
You brought Casey Jones back. April from the last one's back. Corey Feldman's back. Things are working in your favor here. You spent $20 million on this.
Disappointed look. Let's break down this tape. It's yellow now. We've gone
from black to white to yellow.
I don't get this. Why is it yellow? We'll never know unless we find someone from the marketing and New Line to, that would be a great interview to just talk about all the New Line marketing. But what's up with the yellow? I don't know. So we've got they're back in time, ... for their newest movie adventure. And newest movies underlined in red. They really want to let you know this is a movie, folks.
This isn't an episode of a TV show here. This is an actual live action theatrical film here, even though it don't look like it.
Big green letters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The 3 Roman numeral is like slashed, which I'm assuming is either Leo's sword or Raphael's sai. I don't know. And then we've got the turtles in samurai hats looking at a scepter. And they're in a circle, so that's supposed to be representing, the rising sun, the Japanese flag. We get it. Look at you. You're clever. I'm going to be a little sarcastic throughout this film, folks. So I'm just going to let you know. Because this one, I just felt like, wow, I wasted 90 minutes. Disappointed dad look.
Absolutely.
So we go to the back here. We have 1 quote. I believe the first movie we had 3 quotes. The second movie we had 2 quotes. And now we're down to 1 quote.
This is the only one we could pull.
And there's no name on it, so again, who knows? Turtles 3 is the best of the series, loaded with great action, humor, and family-oriented fun. Entertainment Today magazine. So, letter to the editor? Question mark?
Yeah, right? Or like, what is Entertainment Today magazine? What local paper is this? Or what made up publication is this?
Yeah, and then we look at the stills. Right away, it shows us that Casey Jones is back in a wig. We've got April O'Neil with her more cartoon short hair.
Yes.
Which I thought was interesting.
She's got the short hair this time.
And then we've got Splinter talking to Donatello with the scepter in his hand. We've got, I think, Raphael hugging Yoshi. So we've gone from Kino to Yoshi. So even more childlike, literally a child,
a baby.
And then another one where the turtles are sitting around, and you can really tell the suits have changed. They're very shiny and rubbery, and just don't look very good in this still.
I will say about the suits, still in the movie when they're not moving, they look fine. They look good, but as soon as they start moving, is when you can kind of tell. Oh, this isn't as good as it was before.
So basically 95% of the film when they're moving, it looks
yes,
like...
exactly.
Yeah.
But the still on the back cover may not look good. But like when you're watching the movie and they're not moving, you're like, okay, passable. The suits are fine. There are no seams, and they can move around in them or whatever. It's fine. But then, yeah, you see them kind of in action. You see the faces kind of moving. You're like, ooh, this is cheaper.
Yeah, yet $21 million. There's a little bit of story behind that. So we've got the description here. America's most awesome amphibians are back, and this time, their history in an all-new motion picture adventure. When a magic scepter accidentally transports April back through time to 17th century Japan, the boys take off in hot pursuit, cowabungling their way out of the sewers right into Samurai Orama. Now they must battle the evil Lord Norinaga to reclaim the magic scepter that will bring them back below the subways of New York City. So join the heroes on the half shell in a totally turtle-rific trip through time the entire family will enjoy. Ugh, man, even the description is... Ugh.
Here's the thing that they're really pushing with this advertising and the inclusion of this new child character in this. They're really pushing sort of like the family thing. This movie feels like one you'd pick up in like a Christian bookstore or something, like this is so family safe now. Even the second one we were talking about was more watered down from the first one, but now we have watered it down even more since the second one. Now it's just like so family friendly. There's no edge that is of interest to kids or adults that are taking their kids to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite as bad as like Josh Kirby, watered down, like kid friendly. We don't have much money, but we have big ideas. But this is kind of like riding that line. You're not quite in the pros where you should be in the theater, but you're not quite low enough to be like direct to video, but you look, like a TV movie. It's a very weird middle ground they're in, where you got to figure out a way to either look like a really professional film, or you just got to spend less money and just send it direct to video. You can't ride that line.
Yeah, you're so right on with that. Like, it absolutely is like kind of in that nebulous in between where, yeah, it doesn't quite, it's big enough budget, but low enough ideas that it just doesn't fit either way. And it's funny to think that like with the first movie, they thought that was just going to end up direct to video and not do anything because they didn't know that it was going to be a cultural sensation like it turned out to be. But then by the time they got to the third one, it kind of ended up being the movie they were afraid the first one was.
Yeah, and that's kind of the magic of Jim Henson's Creature Shop. They are that good. They had a lot less money and a lot less time than the All Effects Company. It's literally what the effects company is called. All Effects Company. Even the name's kind of generic, and they don't even have a Wikipedia page. I don't know shit about them, but I can tell you, looking at these costumes, they didn't know how to do what Jim Henson knew how to do. Jim Henson's studio knew how to do.
You really feel it in Splinter.
Oh,
he looks just like puppet that would be on like a Disney ride, like he looks like kind of a Pirates of the Caribbean kind of animatronic or something.
I wouldn't be surprised if this company did stuff like that before they did this film. I don't know. Relatively looking at the first and second and then going to the third with Splinter, that is the part of the movie where I really dislike it. I'm past disappointed dad. Looking at Splinter, how you can tell he's a puppet. It's almost like Splinter's an afterthought in this film. At least in the first and second one, we get the, I made the funny. Ha 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 ha. This one, you're right. He's either a ride or he's like a TV show level puppet. And it takes you right out of the film.
Yeah, it's like there's a rod up his ass and you got one guy kind of working his mouth. And that's all it kind of looks like. There is no life in him. It looks like a puppet. It feels like a puppet. The audience knows it's a puppet.
Yep. All right, so let's pop this tape in.
Now available on video and DVD.
All right, so we get one trailer in this, and it is a movie I watched a lot as a kid. It's Surf Ninjas.
I was so glad this trailer was on the front of it because I have entirely forgotten about this movie. Just was gone from my brain. And then in watching the trailer, I was like, oh my God, I watch this all the time. As a kid, like so much of that trailer was so familiar to me. And I was like, I had just taken it out of my brain. Because, I remembered like the Three Ninjas movies or whatever, but I didn't remember this one at all. And like seeing Rob Schneider in there and everything, I was like, oh my God, I watched this every time it was on TV in the early 90s. So it made me really want to go back and watch Surf Ninjas again.
Yeah, and you get to see Ernie Reyes Jr. and Ernie Reyes Sr. being the same film. That's fun. His dad, who's a legend when it comes to all the choreography of a lot of Hong Kong films. It's cool. It's awesome.
And it's it's fun they put this trailer on here because it is a nice connection for fans because they get to see him, from the last one, and a trailer for the next movie he's going to be in. It was smart on the marketing team to put this trailer on this tape. And it definitely got me fired up and wanting to watch this again because it has been a long time and I forgot all about this movie.
As a kid, I remember it just being a complete blast. And it was always like one of those things that I was surprised Ernie Reyes Jr. didn't become more of a big action star in the United States. It didn't work out. And
he's good too. He's good on camera. He's charismatic. He's fun. And he's talented as fuck when it comes to the martial arts. Sometimes it just doesn't take off for people, but it's a shame he didn't blow up bigger because I think he's a talented dude. And yeah, he's magnetic with the camera.
What's feature presentation time?
And now, our feature presentation.
Boy, does this start off odd. We have the turtles rocking out
The only thing I will say in favor of the soundtrack is the fact that they spent a little money and got Baltimore's Tarzan Boy in the soundtrack, because I love that song and I was happy to hear it in here. But they use it in the credits and in one quick scene later on in the movie.
I just can't get past these suits. When they talk, I look at it and I'm like, $21 million? Like, couldn't you just go to Jim Henson and like buy the old suits? There's probably, copyright on a lot of the technology that they invented. So that's not going to work. That was mostly a joke, me saying that, but oh my gosh. I don't know if they had a contract with this company or what was happening, but you would think once you started to see the suit that they show you, like, okay, this is how it works and everything, you'd be like, yeah, this isn't going to work.
I would liken this to, in the Jurassic Park trilogy, by the time you get to Jurassic Park 3, the dinosaurs look like Muppets. This is kind of the same thing, where it's like, by the time you get to this third one, it's like, they kind of stopped trying to make them look real and just kind of phoned in moving mouth and, suits that the actors can kind of get around in. But there's no life in them.
No, and the spots. Why are their spots so weird?
So prevalent. They're so obvious on there. And I'm like, it's kind of nice when they're more blended.
Yeah, like the suits were actually too new looking. Like they didn't actually like pretend that these turtles had lived in them for 15, 16 years. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't.
That's a really good point.
They just look brand new, like right off the assembly line. And Jim Henson's it just looked like skin. It looked like amphibian skin. This just looks like painted on amphibian skin, and there's a big difference.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's exactly what it looks like.
And then we get Casey Jones coming into this, and you can clearly tell he's not on the same studio as the Turtles. And the camera work in this, too, is clearly done by people who have done TV, because they just put the camera down when it's inside of these interior shots. They plop the camera down, they don't really do anything interesting with it, and they just let their characters talk. Now, clearly someone else was in charge of the camera when they go to, like, the outside shots of feudal Japan. It is, like, two dramatically different shot films if you pay attention.
Yeah, I agree. It is absolutely like the master shot close-up is sort of the routine of any conversation scene in this movie.
It's boring.
Yeah, it is.
So there is so much in this film, like, that other than the Tarzan song, I kind of give you that. That song's always fun, but the dialogue scenes are boring. The jokes aren't even funny either.
Yeah, it feels too babyish. It's like kind of the baby version of how the Turtles would talk, and it's like, it's just out of touch too. It's, it's an old guy writing the script for this, it's very out of touch. It's too babyish. And then and this is sort of a compliment. I would say that the New York stuff is a little more interesting than the Japan stuff, even though the Japan stuff's the setting is more interesting to look at. But they're focused so much on the history and stuff like that in the Japan area that it's a total snooze. At least when it's in the New York stuff, it feels familiar, like the other movies a little bit. But and Elias Koteas is having fun as Casey Jones. You could tell he's having fun, even though he's in a completely different movie than everybody else.
Yeah, they don't even stick him in the cool hockey mask. Are you really afraid? Was this... I wonder if they geared this movie towards 8-year-olds and not 13-year-olds.
I think they did. I think that was a major problem with this movie. They aimed younger for their audience as the series went on. And I feel like that's a huge mistake and disservice to the fans.
Yeah, I mean, I see that Stuart Gillard not only directed this, but wrote it. So that's a problem. I don't know if he's worked in other children's films or anything, but I see he's directed in The Outer Limits, and he's got so many directing credits in television. I just don't know. Well, I see that he directed the new TV series Charmed, 5 episodes.
Yeah, well, he also did a few episodes of the 90s Charmed as well. But again, he's just from TV. He's from Go Fast and, work within parameters that have already been set up. And I'm sure that's why he got hired for this, because they were like, it's a series, we have a look, just kind of come in and do the thing. And it does feel that way. It feels so just like going through the motions. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of heart in this.
Oh my, he directed Rocket Man from 1997.
I mean, that's his career high. Once you got Harlan Williams farting in a spacesuit on William Sadler, that's a career high for you.
Wow. I mean, at least he tried on that one. That's what I feel like this one is. This also feels like this should be his big shot. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. You're in a massive franchise. Even if it's, you think it's plateaued, this is kind of like your opportunity to get out of television, because back then it was really hard. And it almost feels like, I wonder, like, because he got to write it and direct it. So you can't get lazy, but I wonder if he got at a certain point, like he knew, he's like, these suits aren't that good. Splinter looks like crap. But he wrote the story, so, I mean, a lot of this blame has to be on his shoulders, even though he clearly has had a very good career. So I want that to be clear. I'm not making fun of the man. I'm just saying I don't think he gets the Turtles.
And who knows? We don't know, because there isn't that much behind the scenes. But maybe he had just like a week to write this screenplay. And they were like, Turtles Through Time is really popular. We need a screenplay in a week. We know you do TV and work fast. Can you do this? And it may just not be anybody's best, because, it probably was a rush thing. It still was made a year after the last one, the one prior. So it probably had another quick, 6-month turnaround. They probably just didn't have much time to develop and edit and really refine the screenplay before getting into it. And then, you get on set and you got crappy puppets. Your story's underdeveloped. You're just kind of going through the motions.
Yeah, and you're not allowed to use any of the enemies from the other films.
That's the worst part of this movie, I gotta say. There's no monsters in it. And that's what I'm coming for. I'm coming for creatures. I'm coming for effects. I'm coming for something I haven't seen before. We got Razor and Tonka in the last one, and they're cool looking. They're monsters. In this one, we get a guy. There's a villain that's a guy, and it's so. And he's got a couple of other guys he works with, and I'm like, put a scar on his face or something, make it interesting. But there's nothing there.
I mean, I really wonder if this script was quite a bit different at one point, because I know Yosaki Ojimbo was a rabbit samurai in the Turtles, and I think it actually splintered. I think that actually came from another Mirage comic book that Eastman and Laird did. Anyway, I'm wondering if he was in this, maybe the English or Dutch, I'm not quite clear what he is. I think he's English, bad guy that's the gun smuggler.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he traveled back into the present, got mutagen, came back to the past, and created Yosaki Ojimbo, and it was supposed to go that way or something. I mean, I know I'm searching on this film, but that's really all I can do, because I just don't want to sit here and rip this film for an hour. But I could. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be nice here. What did you have planned? And maybe you're right. Maybe the script had to be written in 2 weeks. And it's underdeveloped, and he wasn't allowed to use any bad guys, so he's put in a bad position. Because maybe at this point, Eastman and Laird said, we're not even going to help you at all. We're not going to meet in the middle. You got to create some type of creature bad guy. You are absolutely correct. Just make it up. You did that with Toka and Razar. Just make something up.
Yeah, exactly. And if you were saying, they're putting the seed there for this character to come later with mutagen, maybe in part 4 or something like that. You can't lay the groundwork like that when your series is already on shaky ground. That would have been the equivalent of having a cliffhanger at the end of this movie and them never making another one. It's just put the action, put the thing we want to come see in the movie. Don't just lay the groundwork for it, too. If that's what they were doing with this character from the other Mirage comic book.
In reality, I think this is just Shredder looks like a samurai. Let's make the bad guys samurais. I think it is as simple as that.
And that's just unfortunate. Because it's not only lazy, but it also is, it's taking away from the thing that excites fans. We want to come see something that we haven't seen before with the Turtles. We want to see, you've got toys that they're making new monsters every month. We want to see something like that. Give us something new and exciting we haven't seen before. You just put a dude in a samurai costume and a Rashomon costume or whatever, like their bad guy is. We're just not that interested. It's boring. It's boring to look at.
Yeah, hell. Have the guy travel in the future, get mutagen, and then make 4 different turtles, and the turtles are fighting like their shadows. Their evil selves and anything. So they set up this whole Kappa demon. Do that. At least make some demons come and fight them.
Right. They just don't even go that way. They don't even hint at it. We don't even get like a flash of something. We follow the dudes. We get the British dude and the Rashomon dressed samurai guy. Those are our 2 bad guys, and that's it. Like, we don't even get a hint of a demon or anything.
The bad guys are so forgettable.
Yeah.
So when I put in this tape, I forgot I knew it was like they traveled to Japan, but I forgot about the English gunrunner. I forgot about the family dynamic where the son is going off to fall in love with the rebel leader. Oh, wow. This is why I forgot about this. And then like the goofy right-hand man.
I forgot that Vivian Wu was in this movie too. And she was in a lot of stuff at this time. She was kind of a character actress at this time for these kind of characters. And I think she's great. And I was kind of excited to see her in this. But again, she's got nothing to do either.
Yeah, it looks like they wanted her to do more because it's obviously kind of like I don't know, is this Romeo and Juliet? Or is this more like Princess Leia and it's not Han Solo? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing with it.
The rich prince is falling in love with the rebel princess.
These characters are such an afterthought in the script that, like, us trying to grasp at straws and find out what it is the movie's not doing us any favors trying to figure this out because the movie doesn't care about them either.
Do you think the whole Casey Jones and the 4 samurai guardians were like tacked on at the very end because they're like, well, we can't have them in Japan the whole time. We need some goofy stuff for the young kids. So let's make them play hockey and fight like 3 Stooges.
Absolutely. I absolutely think that's what it was. They were like, they probably thought kids are going to think that feudal Japan is boring, which they're right.
Yeah, correct.
And so they add this little, and like I said at the beginning of this, I feel like that is the most interesting part of this movie is the stuff that's set in modern day. And again, that's not like saying much because it's not that interesting, but I think all that stuff works better than any of the Japan stuff in this movie. They just treat the Japan stuff so boringly that watching these 4 guys play video games at an arcade is funnier than anything the Turtles are doing over there.
Yeah, and I think the only 2 highlights in this entire film was one, oh, okay, Casey Jones is back. I remember that as a kid being like, oh, sweet, Casey Jones. And then you're let down because Casey Jones didn't do much. And then the other hand, you had Corey Feldman's voice talent is back. But then I looked at the suit and I was like, yeah, but this is bad. So that's the only 2 highlights. And I find this interesting that Corey Feldman was asked back, but didn't get a raise.
Yeah, we know that he did the first one for very cheap, so he was ready and available to do this one. And they kind of treat him as sort of like the and in the credits. He's sort of our celebrity in this movie a little bit. Like, that's how they treat him. And he does feel like kind of the star turtle in it this time.
But in 1993, Corey Feldman isn't an and. Like, no one's going to the film to watch, the Corey Feldman movie.
Right.
After The Burbs, it was kind of just downhill for him. That's just the reality of what it was. I'm not the person, we talked about this earlier, we're not the people to make fun of Corey Feldman. He's had some tough times in his life. I'm just not going to make fun of someone who had drug addictions. But you can't, the studio's got to know, like, is Corey Feldman the and? But then again, who is an and in this? You know what I mean? I guess Elias Cody, how do you say his last name?
I always say Koteas. I've heard people say Koteas. I don't know.
Koteas? Yeah, I've heard Koteas too, yeah. Pronounce it wrong anyway, because I can't pronounce words. But I guess he could be the and, but I don't think kids know his name.
Exactly. But regardless, it's like, Here's the thing. You were saying it too. I'm not going to pick on Corey Feldman, and like I like Corey Feldman. I like his performances. I like his shtick. You know, I'm always rooting for him. Yeah, and he's had a rough go, man, and that's just, I feel more bad. You know, it's nice, I guess, to have him here because it does give, I guess, the movie, you know, him and Casey Jones. It does make it feel like they're kind of trying to keep it within the canon of the original, but yeah, it's almost just like too little, too late.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. It's too little, too late. Corey Feldman, you know, missed the second one because of the drug rehab, and now it's just like not the same. And the movie's not as good, so you have a lot of disappointing things in that. But I will give them that a lot of the fight choreography still looks pretty good. I don't know how I feel about the turtles riding horses. I find that weird. It just felt awkward.
The whole back half of this movie does feel awkward. The turtles in the samurai outfits, the turtles on the horses, the turtles interacting with the ninjas and stuff like that. It feels awkward, forced, and boring.
We get a couple fights, and I will at least say, like, hey, they're using their weapons, sort of. I don't think we ever see Michelangelo with nunchucks.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
A lot of that has to do with they couldn't release it in Europe if he's using his nunchucks, because for some reason, nunchucks are just not allowed in European films. I don't even know. I mean, hell, a lot of the countries might just completely restrict the actual weapon. I find that so odd. Like, the nunchucks, they're not even blades.
I feel like it's because in the 90s, kids thought they were the coolest thing ever and then got really hurt or got their parents really hurt or something. And they really had to be like, we need to pump the brakes on these because I feel like our generation thought they were like the coolest things ever and got really hurt and like didn't realize sort of the skill that it took to actually wield these things.
Yeah, because that shit will bust your nose. These are weapons. They were designed for one thing: hurting. You gotta watch it. When teenage boys get their own jobs, they're gonna spend their money on crap and nunchucks. Well, I mean, you could hurt yourself with skateboards too. So I'm surprised that I don't even think they skateboarded in the second and third film.
I feel like there was some sort of skateboard thing in the second one briefly in that mall fight or something like that. But yeah, there's none of it in this one. They're riding horses.
Yeah, we've gone from skateboards to horses. Just not a good sign. The direction of your film's not looking good.
Yeah, I think it's just very indicative of like the whole thing. Like from the excitement and the fast pace of skateboarding up and down ramps to sitting on a horse walking slowly through these cheap sets.
And Michelangelo's writing it the wrong way. Isn't that funny, kids in kindergarten? Isn't that funny?
Where are the priests? Where's the temple? Talk about your quantum leap. Hey, dudes, check it out. We're in show. Got it. Hey, where'd we get these clothes? These guys are pretty serious.
I mean, more and more we're talking about it, the more and more obvious it is to me that they're aiming for like little kids with this one.
And the turtles look bloated in their samurai suits. When they're out of the suits in the sewer, clearly the interior sets, they look thin, lean and mean. But when you get them in the samurai suits, they just look big and bloated. So that tells me that they had two different design suits. And for some reason, the samurai ones were bigger and bulkier. So I think that's actually probably why they kept their costumes on, I think, pretty much the entire outdoor, exterior shots.
The reason I noticed it when I was watching it, I think the reason that it looks so bad and so like bloated is because they put the suits over the shell, thus making the shirt or whatever, like the torso piece, look absolutely gigantic because it's covering the shell in the back, but as it's curving through the front, it just makes their hips and stuff look huge. They should have found a way. This is just my, I guess, design aesthetic. They should have found a way to cut the shell out of the suit, because then they would have looked more svelte in there. But because they're covering the back shell, yeah, it makes their whole front torso just look wide.
And these suits look heavier to fight in, because I know they improved the weight of the suit from the first to the second. But maybe it is. Maybe it's just because the costume's over it and it just looks bigger. It's still okay. Like I was saying, I was like, it's not, I don't have really much against the fighting. They just don't look as agile.
Yeah. It's still a Golden Harvest movie, and they're still putting spotlight on the martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like you're saying, it doesn't look like they have an easy time moving around, getting around.
No, and then this whole movie collides at the end, because you get the April O'Neil, like, ha, it's funny that she's got a Walkman in the past. We did that little joke. I don't understand why they, like, appear in the other person's clothes. The rules of time traveling in this movie is you have to be touching the scepter at the same time and have the same mass. And then basically you just switch. So you have all the clothes and everything like that. But yet she takes a Walkman into the past. I know it's nitpicking a little bit, but that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, they didn't think their rules through too much. And sort of like the idea of they have to have the same mass. The 4 guys that come over and replace them with the turtles are not the same mass as the turtles at all.
Yeah, I know, because the turtles look like they're like 225, and these dudes look like they're $180.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they said mass, because they're like, oh, well, because they're in the samurai suits, you know, they kind of are like the same size as the turtles. Yeah, okay, fine, but it's still not very good. And then we've got like, they try to put a clock on this, like we've got 60 hours. Why did you choose 60 hours? Why didn't you say 72? 3 days?
Yeah, the arbitrary number doesn't really have any significance. So why do it that way?
And then, like, it only works every 12 hours? So what clock is this set on? Like, what time zone?
It doesn't even math out right.
I'm like, what? I feel at that point, they're like, the kids aren't going to know that. And you're right. I didn't notice that as a kid. But the reason I didn't notice is because I didn't care. We watched this film in the theater. Every kid left the theater disappointed. Then this movie was bought reluctantly. You know, like my parents are like, oh, look, we got you the third Turtles film. And everyone was like, eh. And then anytime we'd play the game, putting in the film and guessing it off the trailers, as soon as you saw the Surf Ninja trailer, there was just like this, I'm not going to bed happy tonight feeling. Like you're like, oh, damn it. And I think this film, too, was also ones where we just fast forwarded to what we wanted to see and then chucked this tape out and put something else in.
I definitely had seen this one a couple times as a kid, and I only realized it kind of this time. But the thing I liked so much about this movie as a kid was just the idea of the time travel scepter. The rest of the movie I could give a shit about, and that's why I never remember that I had seen this a few times. The fact that I didn't carry any of it with me, besides that, is again indicative of how just kind of like lame the story is and how disinterested I was in it. And then I do remember watching this again as like a teenager at, again, some family member's house. It was on. It's family safe. They left it on or whatever. And I remember thinking, man, what a step down this is. And that was me as a teenager.
Yeah. Well, like Gone, from what I remember, is all the impressions that Michelangelo did. Because in the second one, he did a couple impressions. Gone is like the pop culture references. Well, no, I think there are a lot of pop culture references.
There are, but they're so like lame in this one. Like there's a Terminator 2 I'll Be Back reference with a bad Arnold impression. There's what was the other one that was just very of like 1991, just felt outdated by the time this movie came out. And it's not the same sort of vibe as the Cowabunga dude lingo that's in the first two.
I don't even think they say Cowabunga in this film.
I can't remember them doing it.
Yeah, so if they did it, it wasn't memorable, which is, another problem in its own. But let's get to the end, because two more things I want to point out. One, I watched this film like 2 weeks ago, and I don't even remember what the ending is. I assume they just beat the bad guy, the samurais return and the other samurai sees the girl and the rebellion wins and everyone's happy. I do remember that I think Splinter's like final joke is him doing the hula or no, yeah, like some Elvis. Again, an Elvis reference. Yeah, because every kid knows and wants to see that in 1993. What?
Yeah, and then they have this weird stake at the end of the movie too, where it's like Michelangelo wants to stay.
Oh, that's right. Like he was having a crisis.
But like it's so not on the forefront of the rest of the movie, and then it all of a sudden comes to a head at the very end, and they're like, "No, dude, come on, we all gotta go."
Yeah, were they trying to make it where like Michelangelo was falling in love with her, or was just like maybe we needed a girl turtle because he feels lonely? I didn't know what the hell they were doing with that.
Yeah, it still feels like platonic. It doesn't feel like a romantic interest, but yeah, he like has this weird connection with her and the kid and wants to stay. But we don't, again, it's not totally explained as like romantic or that he has some connection to the past or something like that. He's just like, "Oh, these people were nice to me. I'd like to stay."
There's just so much in this film that doesn't really do anything.
It's undercooked. That's how it feels. If the first movie is a pub burger and the second movie is a Burger King Whopper, this one is raw food poisoning.
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to go with like, a restaurant that no one likes, but no, you just went
Arby's.
Straight to food.
This one's Arby's.
Yeah. Oh, no. The joke returns. This is the Arby's of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Wow.
If the first one's McDonald's and the second one's Burger King, this one's the Arby's or the Sonic.
Oh, there's going to be like 2 fans that are like, "Hey, I like Arby's." It's like, well, we don't. Sorry.
You can like Arby's when you turn 30, but you can't like Arby's when you're 8 unless you're a fucking weirdo.
Oh, Matt is dropping savage lines here. And in fact, factoids that people need to know.
Yes.
I'm just done talking about the film. I can't even think about anything else to talk about except all the video games that are out, and I'm curious if Matt played any of them.
0. I'm gonna tell you right now, none of them.
All right, well then we'll go on to why Jim Henson Studios isn't a part of this. It had nothing to do with money, and apparently they were kind of open to doing this, but the biggest problem was time. At this point, they were producing dinosaurs. They were doing a lot of Disney stuff, and they were doing Dog City. Essentially, they were too thinned out. And for the time that it would have taken to do a third Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film to do it all right, they just couldn't do it. And part of me wonders if they were happy. Like, good, we got out of this one.
I feel like by the time they would have gotten a look at the script, they would have just been like, "It ain't worth it. Dinosaurs is treating us way better right now."
So let's go on, the museum.
This is the second time I've had to reclaim my property from you.
That belongs in a museum.
So do you.
This is a part of the show where we go out like Indy into the film jungle and bring something back. This is our last film of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise. I don't have anything positive to say about this, so I'm just going to say your paint job has to be better on the Turtles. There's a lot of stuff that I could point to, but I feel like it's a much harder to change, like the script and all that. But the paint job, get that right. That will probably help a lot.
You're so right in that, like, it didn't even dawn on me, but like now I can't escape the thought of like, they don't look lived in. And you make such a good point. They don't look dirty. They don't look like they've been through anything. They look like they just put the suits on and they're crisp and they're brand new today. And you're so right. And that takes away all of the magic from them.
I guess another thing is, don't do a period piece I know that's a lot harder to change. Same thing with the animatronics of the face.
Yeah, absolutely. My lump of coal that I'm going to put in the museum is feudal Japan. Don't make your series feel like homework for kids. Don't make it historical. You can have, a Turtles Through Time concept, but it feels so like a movie a substitute history teacher would put on. It's boring. I don't want to see feudal Japan when I watch the Turtles. I want to see monsters news.
That's a really good point. I thought you made a great point too with there's no monster.
Yeah, there's no monsters here. And that's a huge mistake.
Okay, well, I mean, I've seen worse Turtles. The Next Mutation was pretty bad. The Coming Out of Their Shells tour looked that was straight nightmare fuel. So they did better than those two. I guess that's sort of a positive. It's that shit sandwich wasn't as bad as the last shit sandwich kind of reference.
I don't hate this movie. There's enough connective tissues to the other movies that I like that I can't hate this entirely, but it's also just so middle of the road and kind of boring that I also don't like or love this movie either. It's just so meh. I'm not excited to watch it. I'm not planning on ever really owning this one.
It's just there. It's on everyone's shelves and you barely ever watch it. And the only time you do watch it is if you're just running through the entire series.
It's got more going for it than it's the 2007 TMNT, which I've turned off twice, fell asleep to twice or whatever, because it's got Casey Jones in it. I like April in it. It's got enough of the stuff that I like, but the movie sucks. I'm not going to turn it off, and I am probably going to watch it if I run the gauntlet of watching all the movies again, but it's so nothing. It's just air. It's just wind.
I think one time, a long time ago, you described a movie as a wet fart.
It's a wet fart because there's some relief there, but you're not really happy with the relief you got. So,
and you definitely got to go to the bathroom to make sure nothing came out.
Yes, exactly. So we're at where we're at with this one.
Okay, that will end our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise review. I do have one question for my co-host here. At the end of this franchise, which one do you like better? 1 or 2?
1 might be the better film, but I'm always going to rewatch the second one over and over again. So I think I like them both for different reasons, but in terms of, I guess, filmic quality, the first one is the better made movie, but in terms of rewatchability, I feel like I am going to go back to Secret of the Ooze more.
I think the first one's better. A better film. I think I like the subject matter, the darkness, the often used word of grittiness. I like all of that. I like the Frank Miller, Jack Kirby influences and, Eastman and Laird, really getting to show off their characters that they created for the comics. The second one is just rewatchable. It just is. It's filled with pop culture references over and over and the good pop culture references, Vanilla Ice is in it. We've got a Bart Simpson cup. I mean, we just have so much, and you get Mikey and the Turtles being funny and looking like they're a family. They've always where they're just oh, Raph's doing his thing again. Whatever. That's what Raph does. That's what makes those two great. And you can watch those two movies back to back. You can watch the second one more because it's just an easy watch.
I got to go back to the burger reference. It's the first one's a pub burger. You can't eat it all the time, but it's a treat you give yourself, and it's, higher quality or whatever. But the second one's a fast food, Burger King burger. It's a Whopper. And you can just pop those whenever, whenever you're going through a drive-through. So, it depends on, I guess, what you're in the mood for, but I think both movies have enough that they can stand on that work. You want the cartoon, you watch the second one. You want the comic book, you watch the first one.
Yep, and the third one's an Arby's burger where you get diarrhea afterwards.
Yeah, don't be that weird kid that likes Arby's over all the other ones.
That's always going to be what I remember from this podcast.
That's the takeaway from today.
The third one is the Arby's meal.
Yes.
And the kid who liked Arby's was definitely homeschooled. That'll end it. Until next week, Matt, remember to be kind.
And rewind.
Haley Piper, Patrick Lacey, S.E. Howard, Waylon Jordan, and Jeremy Herbert. 5 acclaimed authors of horror and dark fiction. Their twisted tales appeared in the acclaimed horror anthology Worst Laid Plans from Grindhouse Press. Now, their tales of vacation terror are coming to the big screen in a feature film adaptation from Genre Blast Films. 5 acclaimed genre filmmakers will bring these stories to life. Samantha Koyesnik, John Hale, Vanessa Yonta-Wright, Michael Escobedo, and Jeremy Herbert. Worst Laid Plans. Now crowdfunding on Indiegogo. This is one vacation you'll be dying to take.